Rise, Meg.
The Force will be with you.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another news update. I hope you're all having an amazing day. So in today's video we're going to be talking about how The Mandalorian Season 3 is going to lead into the sequels, but will try to fix them nonetheless. We're also going to be talking about the Kenobi series and more. As always, before I dive into the news, please may I ask you to hit like down below, subscribe to my channel if you're brand new and a huge welcome if you are, and please be sure to hit the notification bell to be alerted each and every time that I post new content to the channel. You can expect daily Star Wars updates from me. So without any more jibber jabber, let's dive straight into it. So as you guys know, there's been a rumour floating around which I also covered the other day here on my channel. I'm talking about how supposedly Lucasfilm were working on a new sequel series using unused footage of Luke, Han and Leia. The rumour started on an untrustworthy YouTube channel, and they also stated that the sequels would be erased. But as I stated then, and as I will reiterate now, this is very unlikely and pretty much impossible. Now it's also worth mentioning that while the sequels won't be retconned or erased, it seems like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are going the extra mile to, quote, fix the sequels and make them look a little bit better through The Mandalorian. Essentially, they're working on the assumption that the show has to feed into the sequels, but along the way, they'll use their creative devices to make episodes 7, 8 and 9 make more sense, basically by fixing them. Now, I completely understand and respect that not everyone is keen on the sequel trilogy, but you have to remember that at Lucasfilm and in Hollywood in general, it's all about the money, and The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker specifically made and are still making them a lot of freaking money. You also have to bear in mind that while idealistically Favreau and Filoni could change the timeline leading up to the sequels, as I've also stated in the past, they are employed by Lucasfilm at the end of the day, who have given them the framework of the show that it has to be coherent with what comes next in the timeline, which is of course the sequel trilogy. The writers have a lot of freedom, but not so much that they can single-handedly retcon the sequels. That's not how this business works. And guys, it's also worth stating that despite what you may have heard from other YouTubers, Kathleen Kennedy has quite a large role on the show and is even credited as the executive producer for every single Mandalorian episode in Season 2. So with all of this considered, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have to abide by the fact that they need to connect the show to the sequel trilogy. And with that in mind, let's look at Inverse's take on the matter, which is very similar, by the way, to what I just said. So they've written an article which is Mandalorian Season 3 might fix the Star Wars sequels, Favreau hints. So they begin their article with a very punchy title, Disney will never erase the sequel trilogy. As much as some fans focus their hate on the creative decisions behind the sequels, love them or hate them, they're part of the larger story of Star Wars. 20 years ago, Star Wars fans had to grapple with a similar truth about The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. These days, the prequels are not as hated as they once were, and the larger goal of those films to explain the backstory of the classic trilogy is still very much a part of Star Wars. Now, just to take a quick break here, I obviously adore the prequel trilogy. I never understood the hate behind them, but then again, I grew up on the prequels. They were the films that I knew Star Wars to be when I was a kid. From a certain point of view, the forthcoming Disney Plus shows, including The Mandalorian Season 3, are exactly like the prequels. Ahsoka, Rangers of the New Republic, and Mando are all poised to fix the backstory of The Force Awakens and everything that came later. As is now famous in the Star Wars community, in a recent interview with Writers Guild of America, Jon Favreau said that The Mandalorian inherits a great deal from existing Star Wars stories, and that when he writes, the context is always a consideration, and it became clear that within the established continuity, certain things are likely to transpire. This comment infamously led to several websites speculating that Favreau had implied the events of the new Disney Plus shows would eventually bump up against the canon of the sequel trilogy. What's interesting about this interview with Favreau is that he admits openly that explaining and elaborating on Star Wars continuity is an active component of how these stories are created. In The Mandalorian Season 2, we saw a lot of this. Fandom questions like what happened to Boba, or what's up with different Mandalorians, or where is Luke Skywalker at this point, were not only addressed but incorporated into the major narrative thrust of the season. This may have made Mando a little less accessible to non-diehards, but it's not like any Star Wars fan can say the show doesn't adhere to canon. Still adhering to canon and actively trying to explain it are two different things, and it feels like a larger Star Wars canon shakeup is underway. Disney and Lucasfilm have already said that a handful of these shows will tie together in some kind of crossover event, but what is that event? The events of the sequels almost purposefully seem to avoid taking us to any planet with a huge population. In fact, the entire sequel trilogy largely avoids familiar planets and instead focuses on planets that are in the ass end of space, such as Jakku and Exegol. This gives the sequel trilogy a strange emotional impact insofar as you never really feel like our heroes are going to the center of where all the people are. In their turn, Rangers of the New Republic, Ahsoka, and The Mandalorian Season 3 are poised to answer the biggest questions of the sequel trilogy in the same way that the prequels made sense of the backstory of the classic films. The planet of Mandalore is super pivotal to the galactic events, and it seems like for sure we're going to go there in Season 3. Ahsoka is the link between understanding how the rebellion became the New Republic and what happened to those who fought in the war who weren't related to the Skywalker clan. And finally, Rangers of the New Republic is actually presumably about people who are enforcing New Republic law. If we're ever going to understand how the sequel trilogy happened, the new Disney Plus Star Wars shows are taking the first steps. And ultimately, if you're denying it at this point, then I think you're setting yourself up for a big disappointment when Season 3 hits. It's like with the cloning facility that we saw. I think ultimately that one is going to lead to the creation of Palpatine. I also think we are going to get Supreme Leader Snoke in an upcoming season of Mando. It might not be in Season 3, but certainly in Season 4, if they are adhering to this timeline. Now, I've made an entire video about how there are alternate timelines and we can consider the world between worlds and how The Mandalorian exists on a completely different timeline to the sequels, and it's all based on whether Ahsoka lives or dies. But I think they're gonna go with one coherent storyline where The Mandalorian will ultimately lead and feed into the sequel trilogy. But as always, guys, please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think we're ultimately going to have to confront the fact that the sequels are coming up in the timeline and Mando will lead to it? Or are you completely rejecting this premise and you think that they are going to retcon them or erase them or go with an alternate timeline based on the world between worlds? So let's move on to our next article, and we're going to be talking about something I guess a little bit more positive, and this is the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, the series I'm most looking forward to as a girl who grew up on the prequels. Ewan McGregor is even more excited to play Obi-Wan now than in the Star Wars prequels. The actor who plays Master Kenobi just can't wait to step into the Jedi robes again for the upcoming Star Wars Disney series Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is in pre-production. In a segment on Eddie Izzard's charity marathon stream, the Obi-Wan actor was enthusiastic over the idea of reprising his role as the Jedi Master. So this is the quote: "It'll just be great to play Obi-Wan again," he said. "I did my last one in 2003 and it's such a long time ago. The idea of doing it again is more exciting even than it was then, I think. I'm thrilled to get a chance to play him again." McGregor also pointed towards the leaps in technology from filming the prequels in green screen to making use of the Mandalorian stagecraft technology as another reason for him to look forward to the project. So again, another quote: "It'll be interesting to do, probably not so much blue screen and green screen, which I always find quite tedious to spend week after week in a blue environment or green environment, but this should certainly be more interesting for us." It's also worth noting that a few months ago, Ewan McGregor said that he's also looking forward to reprising the role of Obi-Wan because he's closer in age to Alec Guinness was when he was doing A New Hope all those years ago. But I'm just so excited for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and obviously with all of the upcoming shows, I will be covering them, doing full breakdowns analysis exclusively here on my channel. So my amigos and amigas, that is all of the news I have for you guys today. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to let me know in the comments, hit like, give the notification bell a tickle, subscribe, do all of that wonderful stuff down below. And also be sure to go to my Patreon, where for just $2 or $10 a month, you can get exclusive access to content that's not found here on YouTube. I'm Star Wars Meg, wishing you all a phenomenal rest of the day, no matter where you dwell in the galaxy. Have a good one.